It's time to head down to the big arcade, cough, an emulator on my computer, and play some Sega arcade games. I'm very glad all of these games are still readily available to play in the arcade, cough, on emulator on my computer. Before Sega saw success in the home console space thanks to the incredible popularity of the Master System and Mega Drive, the company really established themselves as a developer of arcade games. There are many Sega arcade classics that we can look back upon as some of the most influential games ever made, and Sega bolstered their home consoles with frequently great ports of their best arcade games. However, Sega were far more prolific in the arcade space compared to what their home console ports would indicate, and as a result there are a lot of Sega arcade games that have still never received any ports to home consoles. Now obviously this would change as Sega continued to port their arcade titles as a part of the Sega Ages series, as well as the virtual arcades of the Yakuza series, so any of the games we feature in this video could become available in the future. But as of the time of this video's publication, the next 5 games we're going to take a look at are still arcade exclusive and are only playable under emulation thanks to the wonderful preservation work of fans. Let's get cracking! AB Cop, or Air Bike Cop, is basically Sega's take on the Chase HQ formula. As a future law enforcement officer, it's up to you to keep the road clean of numerous bike gangs and escape criminals by turbo boosting your own air bike right into their asses. Maybe it should have been called Absolute Bastard Cop. This title was powered by Sega's X board and released in 1991. The X board would also power Sega arcade classics Afterburner, Thunderblade and Super Monaco GP. While AB Cop isn't doing anything particularly unique, what with its action being so similar to Chase HQ, its gorgeous superscalar visuals are coupled with some seriously intense and frantic action. While boosting to gain a top speed is very much the aim of the game, your bike also has a limited jumping ability which is useful for dodging obstacles and projectiles. It's certainly a game that is still attention grabbing even today, and it controls pretty well too. It's definitely a game that doesn't deserve to be lost to the tests of time. F1 Exhaust Note is a twin-cabinet arcade racing game released in 1991 for Sega's System 32 board. This is a very simple little head-to-head racer that can be played in single player as well. There is only one circuit to race on, but there's a great sense of speed to the whole thing. It's certainly very striking visually with its giant car sprites and scaling roadside objects. It all animates beautifully and controls pretty well too. The car grips like all hell, so don't be afraid to really lean into those curves, but you will have to make liberal use of the brake to get through the tighter turns. While the races are only 4 laps long, you do also need to contend with a timer that gets boosted at the end of every lap. You will run out of time if you don't find the best racing line through the circuits though, so this one demands a couple of plays to learn the corners and the handling of the car. This is certainly another beautiful 2D arcade racing game from Sega, but I can see why it was never ported to home consoles because there's just not enough here to justify the effort. Beefed up with a wider selection of cars, circuits, and the inclusion of a championship mode, and I can see this making a great Saturn game, but the arcade is really where this sort of experience belongs. We've got a couple of light gun games to look at in this video, so let's take a look at the first with Alien 3 The Gun. This two-player arcade rail shooter gives you and a friend a mounted pulse rifle each, and you have to mow down aliens in this extremely loose adaptation of Alien 3, where you play as Marines instead of Ripley. There certainly weren't this many aliens in the film, that's for sure. This is another Sega System 32 game, and it first released in 1993, which is a year after the movie it is based on. Alien 3 The Gun has a really good pace to it and a surprising amount of variety for a game that just makes you shoot stuff. You have additional weapons like the flamethrower and a limited use grenade, and there are a huge variety of enemies, with bigger aliens able to survive multiple shots and even having their limbs blown off. We also have boss battles that get really creative with the enemy types and their attack patterns. While this game is full of carnage, it still manages to include some horror-like moments of stillness and even jump scares, which is quite impressive for a rail shooter of this era. This is honestly a fantastic video game adaptation that is buckets of fun even if it isn't particularly faithful to its source material.
Already. Damn. Shut up already. Everybody
DD Crew is a 1991 beat-em-up powered by the Sega System 18 board. Sega have plenty of classic beat-em-ups to their name, with Golden Axe and Alien Storm already being available prior to the release of DD Crew, so it's absolutely baffling that this one whiffs it so badly. The issue is with the controls. Everything feels so imprecise, and you never stun lock enemies when you're doing combos, meaning that they often hit you mid-combo. You often find yourself punching thin air due to how difficult it is to determine the depth, and it's even harder trying to pick up items. You also take loads of damage from enemy attacks, so you'll very quickly drain through a single credit. There are no special attacks, so you're stuck with standard attacks and jumping attacks. You can somewhat mix up the standard attacks by holding different directions with the attack button, but that's it. The game also has a really forgettable soundtrack, so the only thing it really has going for it are the visuals, and I guess they're fine, but they won't blow your socks off. This is a really underwhelming effort from Sega that needs to be doing a lot more to keep players engaged. Maybe DD stands for Diarrhea Dookie. I'm sorry, I won't say that again.
No. Get busy.
And finally, we're diving back into the realm of rail shooters for Sega's 1994 Jurassic Park arcade game. Now, it's absolutely baffling to me why this one never got a home port, because it's one of the most impressive uses of Sega's System 32 board out there. We've got massive scaling sprites, an incredible sense of depth and place, and some of the most visceral action ever put into a video game. You never want to stop shooting in Jurassic Park because there's always an aggressive dinosaur or 10 coming straight for you, and even when there isn't, there's probably some big obstacle in the way that you need to blow to smithereens. Jurassic Park is absolute joyous carnage from start to finish, and it somehow manages to keep amping up the mayhem and surprising you with new set pieces. At one point you drive along the back of a brontosaurus, for God's sake. It's just brilliant. The whole experience is quite a short one, but what is here is nothing short of thrilling. Sega should have really considered bundling a port of this in with the 1997 Lost World game for Saturn, because understandably there isn't really enough here to bolster a standalone release, but it definitely deserves a port because it's just so much fun. Thank you very much for watching. A huge thanks as always to our generous Patreon supporters who you can see here. If you'd like to join them and support future videos, then you can head over to patreon.com/SEGADriven and pledge at the $3 tier or higher. Take care, and I'll see you next time.